Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Marilyn Whitehorse, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then we want to talk about these amazing fiction novels that you're writing. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
All the way from Honolulu.
Honolulu.
That's awesome.
Aloha. Aloha.
Aloha, exactly. So where were you born?
I was born in Spokane, Washington.
Did you grow up
but
there?
I grew up in a very small town. When I left, it was 474 people and the neighbor's big white Samoyed dog, Frosty.
Wow.
And I think now, I haven't been back there for a while, but I think now it's like less than 200 people.
Oh my gosh. What was the name of the town?
So a very tiny, Oakdale.
Okay.
I used to, in another piece of writing I did, I said, I'll give you $1 if you've ever heard of it. In my whole life, I've given away $1.
Oh, is that right? Wow. So it's Oakdale, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you grew up in Oakdale?
I grew up in Oakdale and surrounding environments. Yeah. My great-great-grandfather was one of the first settlers in Washington Territory.
Oh,
It wasn't even a state yet. So my family goes back there a long ways.
yeah. That's awesome. What was your
And
favorite?
that's another book.
There you go. Absolutely. Right. So what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
I think it was the fact that everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
You were safe, and nobody locked their doors. Nobody, if you went on vacation, the neighbor took care of the chickens. You know, it was just a small town life, and for better or for worse, everybody knew everybody.
And everybody took care of each other, right? There was a real community feel, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been realizing kind of lately is I have a friend who's hurt her head and had a concussion, and I'm kind of one of the ones that steps up to take care.
Yeah.
And I realize a lot of people don't do that. And back in the farming community, they didn't have like the police. They didn't have like a big fire department. So when a field fire started, everybody jumped in and, tried to put it out because that's somebody's income and you don't want it to spread to the neighbor's field because those things can get wild.
Yeah.
So everybody pitched in whenever help was needed. And I really like having that value system.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you go to high school in Oakdale or somewhere else?
Oakdale.
Sorry, I apologize. Oakdale, pardon me.
Yeah. So I started kindergarten and 13 of us graduated together out of a class of 18.
Wow.
So
cool.
I mean, by the time you're ready to get out of high school, you're sick of those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
everybody knows everybody, man. That's
oh
cool.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you have a favorite subject in high school?
English.
Yeah.
And when I got to college, I didn't know if I was an English major or a music major. I really liked playing in the band too, but I didn't like to practice.
Yeah.
So one of my English professors, pulled me out of class and said, "What are you doing here?" Because I had written a paper about why I don't speak up in class. I was one of the kids that sat in the back row, never said a thing. And so I'd written one of my kind of satirical papers, And I thought, "Oh, no, I'm in such big trouble. Oh my god." And he said, "What are you doing at this school?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, they're gonna kick me
Mhm.
out for being a smart aleck," right?
Mhm.
And and he took me down and introduced me to the chairman of the department's office and said, "You're now an English major."
Wow.
"Oh, okay."
Wow. Wow, that's
So
cool. What a
that
great story.
yeah,
So where did you go
so
to
that
college?
was that. Eastern Washington University, which
Okay.
is in Cheney, which is right outside of Spokane. Um, at the time, and I think it probably still is, it's one of the best teachers' colleges in the country.
Yeah.
Small school, all my family went there because I either come from a family that's educators or farmers. So
Gotcha.
we're, pretty practical, salt of the earth people.
Yeah. So after you graduated with your degree in English, where did you go?
Mhm. I got married.
Yeah.
I say that because I didn't know what else to do. I mean, what do you do with a degree in English?
Yeah.
I couldn't even get a job at Sears. I mean, so I got married and I followed him around. He
Mhm.
seemed to be having a career and I didn't. And so I followed him around for a while.
Gotcha. Did I ask you who the most influential person was to you growing up?
No, you haven't. And I don't know how I would answer that. I think maybe one of my high school teachers who taught me Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And I was really scared and we're starting to read it. And one day I realized I was sitting on the edge of my seat and I was fully engaged in what was going on. And her name was Mrs. Stilson at the time, but
Mhm.
she had been a state teacher of the year in Washington, and she was fabulous teacher.
Yeah. At Eastern Washington, what was your number one favorite thing about going there?
It was a small school, so you could get to know the teachers and they could get to know you. Now, understand that I came to college in the days of, you know, the late 60s.
Mhm.
So I was fully enmeshed in all that was going on. I failed college 5 times.
Wow.
They pulled me aside and said, and Dean Ogden did this for me, bless his heart. He said, "You're wasting our time and your daddy's money."
Oh.
Now, all the people in my family that were educators had gone to this school. They knew who I was.
Mhm.
They knew who my family was. They knew my aunt that was on this big board of the college. And so, he told me the truth. And he said, "You need to go out and go to work.
Yeah.
And if you don't like that, then you can come back and we'll give you one chance.
Mhm.
And your SAT scores show us that you can do it. So get serious, kid. And if you come back, you will graduate. And at any time, if you don't pass a class or you don't pass the semester, you're out."
Hmm.
I mean, that's some kind of scary stuff to tell a 19-year-old,
I agree with
or
that.
20-year-old, however old I was.
Right.
So I went out and got a job in a potato farm that grew potatoes for McDonald's.
Mhm.
And my job was to stand at the bottom of this machine that
Mhm.
shook me, and I put on these big yellow dishwashing gloves and pulled rotten potatoes out of the pile.
Mhm.
I didn't like that very well.
So
And
as an
so
alternative, it kinda
I
made
went
you
back
wanna
to
go back to
school.
school.
Yeah. And I realized that, if you went to class and you read the book, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about grades anymore. I was really getting engaged in learning.
Yeah.
And it was fun and I wanted to go to school and I loved what I was learning and I carried my big heavy books around and I just did it. And I got a job which kind of made some structure to my life
Mhm.
and then I just kind of took off. pretty soon I was on the dean's list and the president's list, and, you know, it Dean Ogden was right. I could do it. I
Mhm.
just needed to get involved.
Yeah. And you needed a change in perspective, it sounds like, right?
Oh,
And you
yeah.
certainly got
Oh,
it.
yeah.
You certainly
Yeah.
got it, because is this the option, right? Is this what I'm gonna have to do for the rest of my life, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What a great story. So you graduate and you get married and you follow your husband. For how long did you do that?
I was married for 16 and a half years.
Mhm.
We went from Spokane to Denver to
Mm.
Portland to
Wow.
Wenatchee, Washington, which is a wonderful town. I loved living there. To Durham, North Carolina, back to Seattle, and then we got divorced.
What do you do?
He was in medicine.
Oh, got it. So you get divorced, and
Mhm.
what happens next?
And and I got sober at the same time.
Oh,
This is where it gets interesting, Mike.
okay. So let's share that story for a second.
Okay. So, I had a friend who came to visit us. We were old college friends when I was living in Wenatchee,
Mhm.
and, she's sitting on my brown velvet couch telling me how she got sober, and I came that close to saying, "I think I have a problem,"
Mhm.
but I didn't say it. And I'd known this woman for, by that time, 20 years. We'd
Mm.
been to college together, and, but I didn't say it.
Mhm.
And we moved to to Durham, North Carolina, and then back to Seattle. And wouldn't you know, 6.5 years later, it's the same woman. And she calls me and she said, "Mutual friends said that you guys moved to Seattle. Let's get together." Okay, great. Oh,
Mhm.
fine. She's still sober and I'm not.
Yeah.
And she said, she took one look at me and went, "Oh, honey, you're in big trouble."
Yeah.
And so she never told me I had a problem. She told me she had a problem.
Yeah.
And she told me what she had done to help herself, and that if I wanted to help myself, it was available to me too. So I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. And one morning I'm sitting up on my front porch, hiding behind my petunias because you don't want the neighbors to see what you've got in your hands. One of them, it was legal because I was over 21, and one of them wasn't.
Mhm.
And, the man across the street, I always called him Dirty Al, and I laughed at him because he would stagger down his steps and go around the corner to go down to the mini mart down
Mhm.
the street to get his daily bottle.
Mhm.
And there I was sitting there double fisted, right? And, that morning, there was no difference between me and Dirty Al.
What was illegal in your right hand?
What was legal in my right hand?
You said
In
you
my
had
right hand,
you said you had
illegal
you
marijuana,
had
marijuana.
legal and you had illegal.
Yeah, I had a gin and tonic with a twist of lime. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, I understand,
Right.
and my marijuana pipe. I was well on my way to having a good day. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning,
Gotcha.
and I fell out of my chair, and I said, crying, sobbing, "If there is a God in heaven, please help me. I can't do this anymore."
Yeah.
And so did I stop? No,
Yeah.
it just got worse. And and I was afraid to stop. I didn't know what was going to happen if I stopped. Interestingly enough, the day I was sitting there double fisted, I was trying to write the great American novel.
Wow.
I always knew I was a writer,
Yeah.
always, 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 from the time I was a little kid. But I just couldn't, you know, get it going.
Can I ask you a
So I
question
fell out of
that's
my Yeah,
Can I ask
sure.
you a question that's completely inappropriate?
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
What
That's
was
all right.
what was going on that made you so miserable that you started crying and begging for help?
Because I knew that, you kind of get to that time in your life, maybe, when it's one of those turning points.
Yeah.
And
You were just sick of it.
I was I hurt so bad inside. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I was depressed. I didn't know who I was. I felt like I had this big fat hole in my gut,
Yeah.
and I was done. I
Yeah.
was just done.
It's amazing what shame
But I
will
was
do to
afraid.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to stop. I was afraid to stop. And so that summer was a really hard summer.
Yeah.
Um, without bringing too much into it, I had some people that were sitting at my kitchen table asking me if I didn't want to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in Seattle that summer, where there were 45,000 alcoholics, sober alcoholics in the Kingdom.
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh, no, thanks." And they left and went to that meeting, and couldn't wait for them to get out of my kitchen
Yeah.
because I needed a drink.
Yeah.
I mean, I was desperate, I was scared, and I couldn't do it. So one day, so I'm down at my husband and I went on a vacation to the Southwest, and I'm a fine art photographer, among other things. And I wanted to study the petroglyphs down there, the rock writings. So he came home and started an affair, and I stayed down there and photographed. And crazy, it's hard to get a drink in Mormon country, I'll tell you. And and I smoked my last pipe, and I came home. And he said, "I want a divorce." And I was 36 hours sober. I didn't even really know I was sober.
Wow.
So he walked out the door, and I got sober.
Was that the turning point? Was that the thing that
Yes,
sort of made you
yes,
do it?
that was the turning point. Well, I didn't know that he was so unhappy. Okay, fine. 3 weeks later, I had applied to a screenwriting uh, class at the University of Washington. I don't even know why I wanted to do that. I just saw it and thought, "Oh, I can do that." And so it was pretty clear which way my life was supposed to go. I was supposed to stay sober. I was supposed to get a divorce. I was supposed to do this screenwriting class. So I did. It
Yeah.
sounds easy when I say it 34 years later,
Right.
but
Hindsight
it
being
wasn't
2020,
easy at the
right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah. At
wasn't
the
easy
time, it
at
was
the
probably
time.
torture.
Well, at the time, it was scary as hell.
Yeah.
No money, gonna get kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate that the lady that had been sitting on my brown couch was there to pick me up and carry me, and she did.
Isn't that amazing?
She
All
suggested
those
I go
years
to
prior,
treatment.
right? How many years prior to
What
that did she mention getting sober?
6.5,
Yeah. So she
and
planted
I
the
had been
seed
on it.
and then everything
She
came full
planted the seed.
circle.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So I
Wow.
called her and I said, "The it just hit the fan. I need help." And she said, "Come on over."
Wow. What a great story.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. So you went over and she
Mhm.
helped you get to meetings.
Get
She
started.
helped
Mhm.
you. So she helped you with the support you needed.
Mhm. Mhm. I went to treatment. I went to a woman's treatment center uh, on December 12th. So 12/12, I went to residence 12. I mean, how cosmic is that?
Wow. That's crazy.
So I was in treatment for 30 days. I came out, got a divorce, started my life. Got
Wow.
fired from 2 jobs because I was just nuts. But things settled down eventually. Somebody said, "Oh, it's like a freight train that stops, but the momentum doesn't stop for a while. The craziness in your life doesn't stop the moment you put down a drink."
Yeah.
There's all this stuff that has to get straightened out. So 3 years later, I found myself in Vermont going to graduate school.
Really? So
Yeah.
where did you go to graduate school in Vermont?
I went to graduate school at a place called the School for International Training in Brattleboro, Vermont. It's a place that trained all the Peace Corps people back in the Sergeant Shriver days, and I learned to teach English as a second language. I really got into my language. Loved my grammar teacher, even though grammar drove me nuts. And there I was.
Wow.
Then,
Yeah.
then, so I'm dating this guy, and he liked me better than I liked him, but we had some things in common. So, okay. So he called one day and he said, "Well, all right, so you've graduated from school." I still had my master's thesis to do, but he said, "You're graduating from school. You can go anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go?" I said, "I loved it when I was a tourist in Hawaii. I think I want to go back to Hawaii." And he
Mhm.
goes, "Oh, my sister lives in Honolulu." I
Wow.
said, "Oh." He said, "Yeah, she's going to be here in a couple of weeks. I'll have her call you." So the sister called me. She said, "Yeah, I know somebody who has a job. Come on out."
Wow.
This never happens. This
Yeah.
never happens. So a month later, I packed up all my master's thesis stuff and came to Honolulu.
And
And
how
I've
long
been
ago was
here
that?
30 years ago.
Wow. And you've been there ever since?
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
Okay.
Almost. So I was here. I worked at that job for a little while. They
Yeah.
sent this haole lady up to Palolo Housing Project, which is the second largest housing project on the island,
Mhm.
to teach English as a second language to folks at night.
Mhm.
And I did that job for a while, and I did a couple other little jobs, and then I turned 5 years sober. I got my paper from the school that said, "How do you want your name on your master's thesis?" And I got a call. This all happened within 2 days, and I got a call from the university that said, "Oh, we have a job for you. Come on
Mhm.
over." So there I was.
Which university?
So, University of Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
So in one way or another, pretty much the whole time I've been in Hawaii, I've worked for different jobs at the University of Hawaii. I now teach at a community college that's under the umbrella of the University of Hawaii.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you go to work for the University of Hawaii. Are you teaching ESL or are you teaching something else?
ESL. I worked doing some teacher training with the DOE here,
Mhm.
Department of Education. We had a lot of people that came from the Marshall Islands.
Mhm.
Their island is getting inundated, and the teachers in the public school were like, "What do we do with these kids?
Mhm.
They don't speak the language. How do we?" So they developed a program, and I was one of the first people that taught in it to help the teachers understand how to teach ESL kids. That was real fun. I really liked working with the teachers.
Yeah.
I did some work with the Japanese Department of, what was it called? Japanese Ministry of Education. They
Mhm.
would send teachers over to learn more English and to figure out how they were going to introduce it into their curriculum in their schools.
Right.
So it's been a real interesting professional life.
That's awesome. So how rewarding is it to teach English as a second language?
Depends on what day it is. The beautiful thing about it is I get to meet people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Now, because we're in Hawaii and it's the middle of the Pacific, we get a lot of people from Asia,
Mhm.
but anybody wants to come to Hawaii and
Yeah.
spend.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.